Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are looking at something that is happening on today's date for the second time this week. Normally, I tend to look further into the future on this channel, but there happen to be events coinciding with the dates of posting. So the last video was the annular eclipse happening on February 17th. This video is the greatest elongation of Mercury happening on February 19th. So here we are taking a look at the sunset. If you are in a similar time zone to Ireland, then here we are taking a look at the sunset, as it will be just a few minutes after the end of this video if you're watching it at normal time. And here we are with Venus, Mercury, the Moon, Saturn, Neptune's out there as well. Turning around, we already have Jupiter, and that means Uranus is, well, here is Orion, so there must be Aldebaran. The Pleiades would be just up about here, making Uranus just around there. Of course, that is almost complete guesswork, so let's double check. I was probably a little bit off, but there is Uranus, not too far off, thankfully. So we have a number of planets, quite a few planets in the sky at the same time in this part of February. Venus down here is pretty tricky to see, even without things like electricity poles or telephone poles getting in the way. Venus is very, very low when it first becomes visible, so it sets very, very quickly before it becomes as amazingly bright as we know Venus to be. So there is Mercury, really a great time to see it as we come up to 10 to 7. The sky is definitely getting dark, but we still have that glow of sunset telling us where to look. We want to see Mercury at its greatest eastern elongation, which means we're seeing it in the west, and the west of course is where the sun sets. The moon is also there as a helpful marker. The moon is a bit higher than Mercury in the sky, and it is only a very narrow waxing crescent moon. Very difficult to see, really. But it is in the right part of the sky. And of course, we have Saturn there helping us as well. So this is Mercury's greatest elongation, give or take a few minutes, really. Of course, Mercury is a continuously moving planet. It's moving around the sun just like we are. So it might actually be reaching its greatest elongation while it's invisible to us here in Ireland, very similar to how the moon can reach 100% full when it's not visible to us here in Ireland. So let's take a closer look at how Mercury is going to behave over the course of a couple of days here. Mercury's greatest elongation is when it's at its furthest reach out to the side of the sun, but that can sometimes bring it lower and closer to the horizon if Mercury was higher than the ecliptic when it was coming around the sun. So let's just double check here. We're now looking into the future, and Mercury is moving around the front of the sun. If we keep moving forward, we can see that Mercury is getting closer to us and we're seeing less of it. Moving backwards, Mercury was further behind the sun, so further from us, but with more of its surface illuminated. Thanks to the tilt of Mercury's orbit, we can see it here as it gets further from the sun, or further from the sun from our perspective in our sky. It also seems to get higher, and it continues to seem to get higher as it goes around the front of the sun. Unfortunately, this makes Mercury much, much fainter. Even though it's closer to us, less of its surface is reflecting light back towards us. So that makes Mercury more difficult to see, even though it's closer to us, and it makes Mercury easier to see, even though it's further from us, when it is before its eastern elongation. So we can see that Mercury there is visible in the sky for quite a while, and it gets quite bright before it sets. Coming back to the day of elongation, we can see that it's fainter. The sky is brighter when it's at this level of brightness, and it's not going to appear quite as quickly in the sky. But it's going to stay visible, getting higher in the sky, so higher away from the horizon, at least to begin with, for another few days. It takes a while for Mercury to get around the sun. So here we are looking at the 26th, which is the date that a lot of publications are advertising as the parade of planets. But to my eyes here, it's actually harder to see Mercury and Venus together on the 26th than it is back here on the 19th. Even though Venus is lower in the sky, you can see Mercury and Venus together at the same time. Whereas, once we move forward, Venus does get higher in the sky. Venus is also moving out towards its elongation, but Mercury is now impossible to see. Even though it's higher in the sky and closer to us, we're seeing so little of its illuminated side that it's not visible until the sky gets much darker. That also puts Mercury pretty low in the sky and Venus practically under the horizon. Really, any time that we're observing Mercury, we need to be at the coast, or at least at an elevated position where things like trees and bushes aren't going to get in the way too much. Mercury is only visible close to the sun because it is physically very close to the sun. So let's come back here to the 19th, whence we also have the moon in this little arrangement of planets. So here we are looking at just 6:30 with a perfectly clear sky. Venus, Mercury, Saturn, and looping around here, Jupiter as well, all visible to the naked eye. And as long as there are no trees and bushes in the way, we can definitely see Mercury and Venus here together at the same time for Mercury's greatest elongation. As we can continue moving forward, you can see that Saturn is getting lower in the sky at the same time. That means it's getting closer to the glow of sunset and harder to see. We can see the exact same happening with Mercury. Only Venus is getting further out or further from the horizon from this perspective. So we can see that for a few days before and after the greatest elongation, all of those planets are visible together. But as we continue moving forward, Mercury ends up out of view. We have to wait until later for the sky to get dark enough for it to become visible again. And as we continue moving forward, eventually we'll reach a point where Mercury is so low in the sky when it becomes bright enough to be visible that the extinction of the atmosphere will render it practically invisible again. Even though, taking a look at Mercury here, its absolute magnitude is 0.6, and if we move back, its absolute magnitude is 0.6, but the amount it's getting extincted by the atmosphere really changes by several atmospheres, and that's going to change how bright it appears by several orders of magnitude. And when I say order of magnitude here, I don't mean times 10 like a normal order of magnitude, I mean times roughly 2.5, which is the kind of magnitude that the stellar magnitude scale works on. So here we are on the 21st. Let's move a little forward. We'll go to here on the 23rd. Venus and Mercury are pretty close together in the sky. Saturn also isn't too far away. We've got a range of time here where they're visible, coming back to just about 6:30. We'll say 20 past 6. 25 past 6 for Mercury to get visible. Okay, we'll say 6:30. 6:30 for Mercury to become visible. Saturn at a pretty similar time, staying visible there. Venus touching the horizon at just 7. So that gives us half an hour with all of them visible in the sky. And Mercury not getting, not touching the horizon or getting wiped out by extinction until after 7:30. So that puts all of those planets in the sky with a reasonable chance of seeing them. Unfortunately, it means that Neptune, right there next to Saturn, here we go, there's Neptune right next to Saturn. It's not going to be dark enough for Neptune to be visible until both of those objects are quite low in the sky. And of course, you'll need a telescope regardless. The moon has now shifted across the sky. There it is, nice and big and bright. Very, very close to Uranus, which is going to make Uranus a little bit tougher to see. Where are we? Well, it's not even showing where Uranus should be here. Maybe if we remove the atmosphere, it will be a little bit nicer. There we go. There's Uranus, very close to the Pleiades and the moon. But the light of the moon is going to block out Uranus, making it that bit harder to see. Jupiter, of course, that's easy. We're going to see Jupiter nice and easy, really at any time of the month. Here we are moving forward, and we can see Mercury getting harder to see, dropping down into that space next to Venus. So today is pretty much the ideal day. Here we are on the 19th, pretty much the best time to see Mercury. It's a good balance between Mercury being high from the horizon, away from the sun, and also with a fair amount of the light side of Mercury facing towards us, because it is at its greatest elongation. It should be around half, so there's plenty of light reflecting back to us from Mercury. As we move forward, we can see Venus and Mercury getting closer together in our sky, and Mercury doesn't drop back to the horizon that much. We can see it's kind of forming this loop as it goes over, really behind the position that we were seeing it in a few days before, coming around the sun in this way, because there is a tilt, so we do see the orbit of Mercury at a little bit of an angle. However, as it goes around in this way, it's coming in front of the sun, so less of its bright side is visible to us, making it harder to see. it all works out to be a little bit tricky. But Mercury is at its greatest elongation today, and if you are in a similar time zone to Ireland, there is a good chance that you will be able to see it just after this video is finished. Of course, this video should be going up at 6 o'clock. By the time you finish it, maybe 10 minutes later, another 10-20 minutes after that, Mercury should be visible along the western horizon, as long as you have a clear enough view of the western horizon. And it's a good chance to see the other, where are we? Here we go. To see the other planets that are part of this parade as well, which of course I went over in a previous video. So if you'd like to check out the parade of planets, you can head back to a previous video for that. This video was mostly about the greatest elongation of Mercury, which I hope you get to catch over the next few days. But of course, if you don't manage to see it, that's okay. You've already seen a preview here. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do like it. If you like this kind of content, then please subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if you'd like to read some of this information, you can head to my website, queevingscontent.ie. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you back here next time.